Hello everybody, just really quickly before we begin, if you want to check out this video in the original way that I intended it straight from my brain, you can check it out over on Patreon. Patreon is just a way that people can support me on the channel and I can give back to them with longer form edited content that's a little bit better than what you can see here on YouTube. If you're interested in checking it out, then the link will be downstairs. As always, enjoy the video. There is a general well-accepted rule for seeing if a television series is any good. Give a show 3 episodes. By the end of those 3 episodes, you can tell if a show will be good, if you will enjoy it, or if you should just not bother with the rest of the show. We are now 3 episodes into The Last of Us, and I can tell you it's well on its way to being one of the best television shows of all time. When I heard that they were making a live-action television show based on The Last of Us, I groaned. It's a well-known fact that live-action and video games don't mix well. Then it was rumored that Pedro Pascal had been cast as Joel, and my ears pricked up a little bit. Then there were whispers that Neil Druckmann, the original writer of the game, was being brought on to co-write the screenplay. My ears pricked up a little bit more. Set photos were leaked and teased, and it looked good. And by good, I mean it looked like cutscenes ripped straight from the game and brought into the real world. Good. My interest in actually watching the show increased, but I tempered my expectations. Sure, we now live in this bizarre new age where video game adaptations can be actually good, but only if they are stories that are set in the universe of the original games and they're animated. Obviously, a one-to-one live-action adaptation is doomed to failure, such as the examples of the disasters of Halo and The Witcher. But on the flip side, we also have examples such as Castlevania, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, and of course, Arcane. These have set quite a high bar for game adaptations recently. So when you think about it, it's kind of weird. The Last of Us both has sky-high expectations and bottom-floor expectations at the same time. I didn't really know which side of the fence to pick, so I just kind of sat on top of it. But when the first episode was released on January 15th, people started buzzing. There were a few scene changes and small plot changes here and there, but by and large, it was almost shot for shot faithful to the game. The performances from the cast were stellar, and the people working on it, well, seemed like they wanted to work on it. The editing was spot on, with great camera work as well as perfect audio scoring, taking many motifs and scores from the original game's soundtrack. The pacing was immaculate and, in my opinion, was better than the game's pacing. And to top it off, the writing was top-notch. The dialogue was snappy and organic, the plot points were well represented, and things were set up perfectly for the season ahead. I had to take a step back and ask myself, was this the game adaptation that we have been waiting for so many years? No. I can't talk about this yet. It's only been 1 episode. I'll wait till the full season is out and then I'll make a video. Then episode 2 was released, and I watched it. It wasn't as hard-hitting of an episode as the first, but it was still gut-wrenchingly faithful to the game, having one of the best representations of game combat in a live-action show that I've ever seen. And it also further deepened the world and helped us build a better understanding of the fungi and the rules of the world. But no, I can't talk about the show yet. It's only been 2 episodes. The jury is still out on whether the show will actually turn out to be good. I need to wait until the full season comes out to make a proper video talking about it. Then episode 3 came out, and now I cannot stand idly by without talking about this show. I am now convinced that the writers not only understand the source material of the original game, but they are also passionate about it, knowing how to both respect it and make changes and improvements where necessary to the screenplay to make it work for television. If you haven't taken the time to watch the show, please go do so, as you are missing out on what may very well be one of the best, most lovingly crafted live-action television shows ever made. Now, for all of the people who are still here, there are a few spoilery things I want to talk about, because I want to talk once again about adaptation. When you're adapting a story into a show or a movie, it's really hard. You have to distill dozens, sometimes even hundreds of hours of story, world building, and character development into 10-ish hours of television or 2 to 3 hours of film. It's a monstrous task. Inevitably, things will get cut, shortened, changed, altered. But as a writer adapting that story, at the end of all of those changes, you need to ask yourself a very difficult question. Did I preserve the heart of the story? The soul that made the original story so great? Okay, what was the soul of The Last of Us that made it so beloved?
This is not a show about zombies. This is a show and a story about love. It's a story about two people that are both lost, that find each other, and how they make their way through this world.
And the writers understood this so well, as every episode so far has been about love. Episode 1, A Light in the Darkness. The series kicks off with some very smart changes to the original opening of the game, adding in some scenes of the scientists explaining the cordyceps fungi and letting us spend more time with Sarah and Joel, a very intentional choice that achieves two very important things in the story. Number 1, it allows the pacing of the first episode to slowly ramp up. This is a story where one of the main threats is a fungal outbreak that controls people. Letting our audience know what's going to happen and then taking your time to build up to the big moment of the outbreak? That was a great pacing choice that ratcheted up the terror and dread for the opening of the show. Number 2, it makes this scene hurt so much more, as well as making it even more apparent as why Joel turns into the cold survivor he does. It sets an understandable set of rules that guides Joel's actions and his future relationship with Ellie. Other than those two changes, the rest of the episode just about follows the opening of the game, even taking scenes and dialogue straight from the source.
What are you doing?
Killing time.
What am I supposed to do?
I am sure you will figure that out.
Your watch is broken.
Which, in my opinion, is a smart choice from the writers. You play to the fans of the original work while also showing that you understand and respect it. A good season and series opener needs to be memorable. If you don't make an impact on your first launch, you might struggle to convert viewers on your show. And man, they struck a perfect balance between tense, exciting, heart-wrenching, and intriguing, as well as having so many subtle nods and setups for the rest of the season. Episode 2, Infected. Of all of the episodes to write, I have a feeling that this was among the hardest to do so. Why? This episode was from a section of the game that is almost entirely gameplay. Translating a cutscene to screen is easy. Translating the emotions a player has while actually playing the game is what I thought to be impossible. It has been the downfall of every one-to-one adaptation so far. When playing a game, an audience has a very different experience than one passively watching. There is something about being in control of the action that fires a completely separate part of your brain and can elicit emotional attachments to what's going on much stronger than somebody just watching the show. You feel as though those events are in some way happening to you directly, which connects you in a way almost indescribable. Yet, somehow, they managed to capture it pretty well in this episode. For those of you who have not played the game, let me explain a couple of game mechanics that they used in the show to stay faithful to what it feels like to play the game. Clickers, or people who have been infected for so long that the fungi fully takes over their head, are completely blind, but they have sensitive hearing and make echolocation clicking noises to hone in on their prey. In the game, you will more often than not hear them before you see them. Clickers are also very hard to kill, often tanking multiple shots before going down, and if they get close to you, it's an instant kill. Game over. Better luck next time, idiot. To make the combat even more stressful, reloading is an arduous, stressful event with ammo being scarce. Every shot counts, and unless you are extremely good at the game, you will miss a few times. The enemies are hard to aim at as they are jumpy and quick moving, and Joel controls with quite a bit of aim shake, which can make landing shots a little tricky at times, especially under stress. And to add even more stress, in most games, when you open up your menu screen, the game world freezes, and it allows you to browse the menus at will. In The Last of Us, Joel kneels down and opens up his backpack, but the world continues to move. There is no pausing. If you need to switch weapons because you ran out of ammo, switch equipment, craft something in desperation, you need to do so in cover and when safe to do so, otherwise you're probably gonna die. The game's combat sections are brutal and rely on the creativity of the player to succeed with limited resources. But what does all of this have to do with the show? Everything. Episode 2 has our only real quote-unquote combat section so far with the clicker encounter. And just really quickly here, let's run down the list and go through my notes here. Hear them before you see them. Check. Hiding in a corner and praying they won't find you. Check. Mad scramble of shooting and using breakable objects to distract them so you can stressfully reload. Check. Quietly moving around them to try to get away from them. Check. Tanking multiple shots until you're actually able to hit them in the head several times. Check. Overall, 10 out of 10, incredible representation of the combat in the game. But remember, this is still a story about love.
Say who you can say.
Yeah. Tessa's sacrifice hurts way more in the show, and logically it makes much more sense than having Fedra tracking Joel and Ellie down. Plus, now we have one of the most disturbing scenes ever put to screen, so cheers for the nightmares, guys! The episode sets the foundations of the relationship between Joel and Ellie, as well as showing the loss of Tess and what that means for Joel moving forward. The episode, while having some great action, is still about love. Episode 3, Long Time. It's really hard at times to justify straying away from the source when it comes to key plot points in a story. And for episode 3, they went well out of their way to change an early plot point in the story. They changed how Joel and Ellie meet Bill and how they get the car. And honestly, for me, this was so much better than the game, and it was so well written. Taking full advantage of the change to television instead of using game pacing structure, the writers filled in a full life backstory for Bill and Frank in a flashback. How they met, found love, and protected one another, and pieced together a meaningful existence in a world that forgot how to do that. This episode is about nothing else other than love. And I think this added line is my favorite of the series so far.
Paying attention to things. It's how we show love.
As well as setting up these heartbreaking lines.
Just let me love it the way I want to.
Then love me the way I want you to.
The episode is beautifully paced, and even though you can guess how it ends, it still leaves you in tears. The episode also does a brilliant job of developing the relationship between Ellie and Joel as they start to become closer to one another. And again, stellar episodes, stellar writing, acting, cinematography, editing, mixing, everything. So where does this leave us? We are now 3 episodes into a 10-episode season. They could still fumble the rest of the story and catch me by surprise, but that's the thing. After 3 episodes, I'm now expecting it to be one of the best seasons of television ever put together. From everything that I've seen and heard, both from on-screen and behind the screen, every member of the writing team, production team, the actors, all deeply respect the story and the world that the original game gave to us. Any other team would have tried to make this the next Walking Dead, focusing on the action and the zombie outbreak, giving us yet another mediocre product that missed the point. There are a few changes that were made to make it adapt to a screen fluidly, but Every change so far has been organic and seamless, maintaining the heart of the story. A story about love. I'll check back in when the season finishes, but if you haven't done so yet, start watching. You do not want to miss out on this show. If you have started to watch the show and you haven't seen the game and you're interested to see how the two compare, I have started live streaming the game over on my second channel. Feel free to drop by and laugh at my horrible aim or cry along with me at the story. Love to see you there. Special thank you to Ian Etzep and Joshua Paletti, who both are pledged at the executive level on Patreon to help make this video possible. Again, if you guys want to check out the Patreon, the link will be downstairs.